The sun was burning like fire in the empty wasteland. Sand stretched far in every direction, with no sign of life. The ground was cracked, the air dry, and the silence heavy. Only the sound of the wind moved between the broken stones and dunes. A lone human walked slowly through this endless desert. His clothes were torn, his water almost finished, and his face covered with dust. He had been walking for many days, searching for food, shelter, and hope. But the wasteland gave nothing, only pain and loneliness. His name was Marcus, a survivor of a war between humans and aliens. The battle had ended long ago, but the scars remained. He did not know why he was still alive when so many others had fallen. Perhaps it was luck, perhaps it was curse. All he knew was that he must keep walking. If he stopped, he would die. As he climbed a small hill of sand, Marcus saw something strange below. At first, he thought it was just another broken rock, but then he noticed the shape was different, softer, more human-like. Curiosity pushed him forward, even though danger could be waiting. When he reached the bottom, his heart stopped for a moment. Lying on the ground was a young alien girl, her skin pale blue, her hair silver like moonlight. She wore clothes that once looked royal, but now torn and dirty. Her lips were dry, her eyes closed, her body weak. Marcus knelt beside her and checked if she was alive. To his shock, she was still breathing, but very faintly. He pulled back quickly, fear running through him. She was no ordinary alien. She was something different. Her clothes and jewels told him she was important, maybe even royalty. Helping her would mean trouble, danger, and maybe even death. But leaving her here felt wrong. His mind battled with his heart, survival against honor. Marcus whispered to himself, "If I take her, I will lose my water, my strength, maybe my life." The wasteland had no mercy for those who carried weakness. Every step with her would be heavier, slower, and deadly. Still, he looked at her face, fragile and innocent, even though she was alien. She looked more like a lost child than an enemy. The wind grew stronger, carrying dust across the desert. Marcus knew he had no time. If he left her, she would not survive the next storm. He remembered the soldiers he once served with, the ones who spoke of honor. They used to say, "A man's worth is not in what he gains, but in what he protects." Those words came back to him now. In this lonely wasteland, with a deep breath, Marcus made his choice. He lifted the alien girl carefully into his arms. She was light, too light, as if she had not eaten for many days. Her head rested weakly against his shoulder. He tightened his grip and began walking again. Every step felt heavier, the sand pulling him down. But he refused to stop. The sun climbed higher, burning his skin. Sweat fell from his face, mixing with the dust. The girl stirred a little, her eyes opening. For a moment, her voice was soft, almost broken. "Why? Why help me?" Marcus did not answer at first because he did not know. Finally he whispered, "Because someone should." Her eyes closed again, but a small tear slid down her cheek. Hours passed, and Marcus struggled to keep moving. His water flask was almost empty. The wasteland seemed endless, the horizon never closer. The weight of the girl slowed him, yet something inside pushed him forward. He felt he could not abandon her now. Not after seeing her pain. As night began to fall, shadows grew across the dunes. Strange sounds echoed in the distance. The wasteland was not empty after dark. Predators moved in silence, hungry for flesh. Marcus knew they were being watched. He tightened his grip on the girl and kept walking. The storm of sand behind them grew stronger, and in front, the darkness promised even greater danger. The wasteland had given him a test between survival and honor. And by saving the alien princess, Marcus had chosen his path. But deep inside, he wondered if this choice would cost both of them their lives. The night was colder than Marcus expected. The burning sun had vanished, and now icy winds cut through the wasteland. He carried the alien girl close, trying to shield her from the biting air. Every muscle in his body ached, yet he kept walking. Stopping meant death, and not only for him, but for her as well. They reached the ruins of an old metal structure half buried in sand. Perhaps it was once a shelter, maybe a broken transporter station. Marcus pushed inside through a collapsed wall. The air smelled of rust and dust, but it was better than open desert. He laid the girl gently against a broken panel, then sank down beside her. His throat burned with thirst, his lips cracked. He pulled his flask and looked at the tiny drop of water left. He wanted to drink it, his body screaming for relief, but when he looked at her weak face, he raised the flask to her lips instead. A few drops touched her mouth, and she swallowed slowly. She whispered something in her language, words he did not understand, but her eyes said thank you. And that was enough. Marcus leaned back, staring at the roof that barely held above them. His mind screamed at him for what he had done. He had given away water that he needed to survive. He had chosen honor over life, and honor did not quench thirst. Yet a strange peace settled over him. He did not feel regret, at least not yet. By morning the girl stirred, her voice still weak. "My name is Layara," she whispered slowly. In broken human speech, Marcus looked at her with surprise. She spoke his language, though every word seemed painful. "You, human, why carry me?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "Because leaving you would be wrong." She closed her eyes, breathing weakly, but a faint smile touched her lips. As the sun rose, the wasteland grew alive again with heat. Marcus tightened his boots, wrapped the cloth around his head, and lifted Layara onto his back. Every step felt heavier than the last. The sand shifted under his feet, pulling him down. He gritted his teeth, pushing forward with stubborn strength. Hours passed in silence, only the sound of his footsteps and the dry wind. Then, suddenly, he saw something in the distance, a shadow moving fast across the horizon. He froze, heart pounding. It was no animal, it was a machine. A hunter drone scanning the desert, its red eye glowing like fire. Marcus ducked behind a sand dune, pressing Layara against the ground. The drone passed overhead, its sensors searching. Layara trembled, whispering in fear. My enemies. They hunt me." Marcus looked at her, his mind racing. He had been right. She was no ordinary alien. Someone powerful wanted her gone. And now, by carrying her, he was part of the same hunt. When the drone passed, Marcus lifted her again, sweat dripping from his brow. His legs shook, but he forced himself to move. The burden was heavier now, not only her body, but the danger that followed her. Every shadow in the distance could be an enemy. Every sound in the wind could be death approaching. They reached a ridge by evening, the land stretching far below. Layara spoke again, her voice weak but urgent. "I am not just one of them. I am princess, my people. Left me." Marcus's eyes widened. A princess, abandoned in the wasteland, hunted by her own kind. The thought chilled him more than the night wind ever could. He asked her why, but she turned her face away. Silent tears falling. That night, Marcus found an old wreck of a transport vehicle half buried in sand. Inside, there were scraps of metal, broken screens, and dust everywhere. But it gave shelter, and for now, shelter was life. He lit a small fire with what he could find, keeping it hidden from the outside. Layara rested beside him, her breathing slow but steady. He watched her, wondering why he was risking so much. One word kept echoing in his mind: honor. But honor came with a price. His strength was fading, his supplies almost gone, and the wasteland gave nothing back. He wondered if he had doomed them both by choosing this path. Yet deep inside, something told him it was the only path worth taking. He remembered again the voices of his fallen comrades. "Survival without honor is no life at all," they used to say. Now he understood those words more than ever. Outside the wreck, strange lights flickered in the night. Marcus peered through a crack in the metal, his heart tightening. Figures moved in the distance. Tall and armored, searching, Layara stirred in her sleep, her face pale with fear even in dreams. Marcus gripped the broken piece of metal in his hand like a blade. He was ready to fight if they came closer. The burden he carried was no longer Just survival, it was destiny, though he did not know where it would lead. The wasteland had given him no choice. He had chosen to carry her, and now he carried not only her life, but his own fate. And as the hunters drew nearer, Marcus knew the true weight of his burden had only begun. The morning came with a cruel heat that burned the sky red. Marcus woke with his back aching, his mouth dry, and his eyes heavy from little sleep. Liara still lay inside the wreck, her breathing weak but steady. For a moment, Marcus watched her, wondering what twist of fate had brought them together in this dead land. She was not just an alien girl anymore. She was a princess, a secret heavy enough to crush anyone who carried it. He stepped outside the wreck, the wasteland stretching endless before him. The sand shifted under his boots, whispering like voices long forgotten. Every horizon looked the same, empty and cruel. Yet somewhere in this desert, enemies searched for them, their shadows moving silently behind the dunes. Marcus returned inside and gave Liara a piece of dried ration he had saved. She ate slowly, her hands trembling, her eyes full of unspoken fear. Finally she whispered, "You should leave me." Her voice cracked as she said it, as if even she did not believe her own words. "If they catch you with me, you will die," she said. Marcus shook his head, his jaw tight. "Then I will die with honor," Liara stared at him, her silver eyes wide, shining with something between disbelief and gratitude. They set out again, Marcus carrying her whenever she grew too weak. The burden pulled on his strength, but he refused to let go. As they crossed the dunes, Liara began to speak more, though her voice was faint. "My people feared me," she said. Marcus frowned. Why would they fear their own princess? She looked away, her eyes shimmering with pain. "Because of what I carry inside. A power they cannot control." Marcus felt a chill despite the burning sun. He had already known she was important, but this was something else. A princess with hidden power, abandoned by her own people, hunted like prey. The weight of his choice grew heavier, yet he kept walking. Survival screamed at him to leave her. But something stronger whispered that his path was tied to hers. By midday, they reached a canyon carved deep into the earth. The wind howled through its walls, carrying whispers that seemed almost alive. Marcus climbed down carefully, his arms burning from carrying her weight. At the bottom, they found the remains of an ancient ruin, stone walls half buried in sand. Symbols carved into the walls glowed faintly in the shadows. Lyra's eyes widened, and she whispered, "This place. It is older than my people." They entered the ruins, the air cool and heavy with silence. Strange markings lined the walls, telling stories Marcus could not understand, but Liara touched them with trembling fingers, her face pale with awe. "These ruins, they speak of a bond between human and alien. A time long before war," she said softly. Marcus raised his brows. "Humans and your kind together?" She nodded slowly. "Long ago, before fear divided us." As they explored deeper, Marcus noticed something carved into the stone. A figure of a man standing beside an alien with silver eyes like Liara. Above them, words etched in ancient script glowed faintly. Liara translated slowly, "When survival fails, honor will save the heart of worlds." The words struck Marcus like thunder. They were the same words his comrades once spoke, though he never knew their origin. Before he could think further, a sharp sound echoed through the canyon, the hum of engines, the march of metal feet. Marcus pulled Liara into the shadows, his heart pounding. Enemy patrols entered the canyon, armored figures with weapons glowing in the dust. The hunters had tracked them here, and now escape was nearly impossible. Lyra's hand clutched Marcus's arm, her voice trembling. "They will not stop. They will kill us both." Marcus gritted his teeth, his hand gripping the broken blade he carried. He was outnumbered, outmatched, but he could not turn back now. If the ruins spoke truth, then honor was the only path forward. The hunters searched, their red eyes scanning through the darkness. Marcus held his breath, pulling Liara behind a crumbling pillar. But one of the soldiers turned, its gaze landing near them. Marcus felt his muscles tighten, ready to fight. Just then, Liara whispered. Something in her tongue, her silver eyes glowing faintly. The markings on the wall began to shimmer, the stones vibrating with hidden power. A wave of light spread across the ruins, blinding the hunters for a moment. Marcus used the chance to strike, his blade slashing against the nearest enemy. Sparks flew as metal clashed, the sound echoing. Through the canyon, he fought with desperation, each move fueled by survival and honor. Liara's power grew stronger, the ruins pulsing with light as if responding to her presence. The hunters staggered, blinded and confused, retreating slowly into the canyon's edge. When the silence finally returned, Marcus dropped to his knees, his chest heaving, his blade cracked, his body bruised, but he was alive. Liara knelt beside him, her face pale but her eyes shining with new strength. "You carry burden, yet you fight for me," she whispered. Marcus looked at her, his voice hoarse, because sometimes burden is the only path to honor. Above them, the ruins glowed brighter, the ancient words shining once again. The wasteland had revealed more than secrets, it had given them a path, but with every secret uncovered, the danger only grew greater. Marcus knew the sands would not rest, and the hunters would return. The burden was not just hers anymore, it was his too, and their fates were now bound by survival and honor. The ruins lay quiet after the fight, but Marcus knew silence never lasted in the wasteland. The hunters had been forced back, yet more would come, stronger and faster. He pressed his ear to the cold stone wall, listening. Far in the distance, engines hummed, growing louder. The enemy was regrouping, preparing to strike again. Liara leaned weakly against the pillar, her silver eyes dim but still glowing faintly. Her strength had returned a little after awakening the ruins, but her body was still fragile. Marcus looked at her, then at the broken blade in his hand. He knew he could not hold off another wave. Not without cover, not without luck. "We can't." "Stay here," he whispered, his voice low and sharp. Liara nodded, though fear trembled in her expression. They moved quickly through the ruins, Marcus half carrying her when her legs faltered. The ancient walls seemed to whisper with every step, the glowing symbols fading as they left. The canyon narrowed ahead, opening into wide desert once again. But before they reached it, a red light swept across the stone. A drone hovered above, its scanner sweeping like a blade of fire. Marcus dragged Liara behind a fallen arch, the heat of the scanner burning his skin as it passed. The drone paused, scanning deeper, as if smelling their presence. Marcus held his breath, gripping the princess tightly against him. The silence stretched too long, every heartbeat echoing like thunder in his chest. Then the drone turned sharply and shot upward, firing a signal into the sky. Marcus cursed it under his breath. "They know where we are." In the distance, engines roared, heavy and merciless. A war machine emerged on the ridge, its massive frame shaking the ground. 6 legs of metal stomped through the sand, its weapons glowing with deadly light. Behind it marched armored soldiers, their rifles ready, their visors glowing red. The hunters had arrived in force. Marcus pulled Liara's arm, urging her to run. They stumbled into the open desert, sand flying under their feet. The sound of machines followed close, heavy and unrelenting. Each step felt slower, each breath heavier. But Marcus refused to stop. The princess clung to him, whispering, "They will not stop. They will never stop." Her words felt like chains, but Marcus only gritted his teeth harder. "If they want us, they'll have to catch us," he growled. The chase tore across the dunes, the war machine firing beams of searing light. Explosions erupted in the sand, spraying fire and dust into the air. Marcus dove behind a dune, shielding Liara as the shockwave rolled past. The heat burned his back, but he forced himself up again. Every second counted, every step between life and death. They reached a cluster of old ruins buried beneath the sand. Broken towers jutted from the earth like bones of giants. Marcus pulled Liara inside the shadows, weaving through crumbled walls. The soldiers followed, their boots clanging, their weapons lighting the dark. The war machine circled outside, blocking escape. Inside the ruins, the air was heavy, dark, and filled with echoes. Marcus guided Liara down broken stairs into tunnels. Below, the walls dripped with moisture, a rare sign of water deep underground. But he had no time to stop, no time to think. The tunnels twisted like a maze, the sound of enemy pursuit bouncing off the stone. Liara stumbled, nearly falling, but Marcus caught her. Her eyes glowed faintly, whispering words he could not understand. The stone answered with a low hum, the air alive with hidden energy. Suddenly the ground shook, a blast tearing through the ruins above. Dust rained down, the walls trembling as the war machine forced its way in. Marcus dragged Liara through narrow passages, his breath ragged, his legs burning. Every corner felt like the last, every turn another trap. But then a beam of light cut across the tunnel behind them. The soldiers had found the entrance, their voices sharp and mechanical. Marcus pulled Liara into a small chamber, pressing her against the wall. The chamber glowed faintly, ancient markings etched into the stone. Liara touched them, her voice trembling as she whispered in her tongue. The markings lit up, spreading light through the walls like veins of fire. A hidden door groaned open, revealing another path. Marcus wasted no time, pulling her inside as the hunters stormed the chamber behind them. The new tunnel sloped downward, cooler air rushing against their faces. But the sound of pursuit never stopped, footsteps and machines crashing closer. Marcus felt the weight of his choice press heavier than ever. He could abandon her now, slip into the shadows, save himself. But every time the thought rose, he looked at her and crushed it down. Survival without honor was emptiness, and he refused that path. They burst into a wide cavern lit by glowing crystals. The light shimmered on the walls, casting long shadows for the first time. Marcus felt a spark of hope, but the sound of engines followed, the war machine forcing its way closer. Liara's strength flickered, her eyes glowing brighter than before. She whispered, "This place. This is old sanctuary." The crystals pulsed, responding to her voice, their light growing stronger. The cavern seemed alive, waiting, watching. Marcus looked around, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his face. The chase had brought them here, but escape was not yet certain. The hunters would not give up. Not until they were both gone, and as the cavern glowed brighter, Marcus realized this sanctuary held secrets even more dangerous than the desert itself. Asterisk. The cavern glowed with strange blue light, crystals humming softly in the dark. Marcus stood still, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Liara leaned against him, her body weak but her eyes bright with the reflection of the glowing stone. For a moment, the place felt almost safe, almost peaceful. But Marcus knew peace in the wasteland never lasted long. Behind them, the echoes of the hunters' steps grew louder. The war machine's metal legs smashed stone as it forced its way through the tunnels. The soldiers shouted commands, their glowing visors searching every shadow. They were coming, relentless and merciless. Marcus's grip tightened on his broken blade. Though it looked small against the storm approaching, Liara touched the crystals with her trembling fingers. "They call this sanctuary," she whispered, her voice faint. "A place where my ancestors once prayed." The crystals pulsed, as if answering her. Marcus frowned. "Can it protect us?" Liara shook her head slowly. "Only if we are worthy." Her words sent a chill through him, but there was no time to question further. Marcus pulled her deeper into the cavern. At its center stood the remains of an old outpost, metal walls half broken, wires hanging loose. It must have been human-made, long abandoned, hidden beneath the alien ruins. He pushed open the rusty door, the sound screeching through the quiet. Inside were shattered panels, broken weapons, and dust thick on the floor. It was not much, but it was something. For a hunted man and a dying princess, it was the last refuge they could hope for. Marcus lowered Liara onto a pile of cloth scraps. Her breathing was shallow, her body trembling. Yet her eyes stayed on him. "You should leave," she whispered again, her voice sharp with pain. "They want me, not you. If you run now, maybe you can live." Marcus shook his head, his face grim. "I've carried you this far. I won't drop you now." Lyra's lips trembled, her silver eyes filling with tears. "You don't understand. If they catch you with me, they will make you suffer." Marcus bent down close, his voice steady. "Better to suffer with honor than live as a coward." Outside, the sound of engines shook the cavern walls. The war machine was close, too close. Marcus searched the outpost, his eyes scanning for anything useful. He found an old rifle half buried in sand, its metal corroded, but still strong. Beside it lay a small box of cells, weak but not dead. He loaded the weapon, checking its weight. It would not stop a war machine, but maybe it could slow the soldiers. Sometimes seconds were enough to decide fate. Liara tried to rise, but her body failed her. "Do not fight for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Marcus turned to her, his jaw set. "I am not fighting for you," he said. "I am fighting because it is the only path I know." Her lips parted, but no words came. Only tears glimmering in the crystal light. The first soldier broke into the cavern, its rifle glowing red. Marcus fired without hesitation, the shot echoing like thunder. The soldier fell, its armor sparking, its body crashing against the stone. More followed, their voices sharp. Weapons raised, the cavern erupted into chaos, light and fire clashing against stone. Marcus fought with fury, his body driven by desperation and stubborn will. Every shot, every strike was a cry of survival mixed with honor. The soldiers pressed forward, numbers overwhelming. The war machine's shadow loomed at the cavern's mouth, its weapons charging. The crystals pulsed brighter, as if alive with the storm of battle. Liara struggled to her knees, her silver eyes glowing fiercely. She pressed her hand against the crystal wall, whispering words in her alien tongue. The cavern trembled, the light spreading like veins of fire. Energy surged through the stone, striking out at the soldiers. Their armor cracked, their visors shattered, their weapons burned in their hands. The war machine faltered for a moment, its red eyes flickering. Marcus shielded his face from the blast of light. When he looked again, Liara was still kneeling, but her body shook violently. The power was draining her, tearing her apart. "Stop!" Marcus shouted, rushing to her side, but she shook her head, her eyes burning with determination. "This is the only way," she whispered, her voice breaking. The cavern shook harder, stones falling from the ceiling. The war machine fired, beams slicing through the air. Marcus pulled Liara close, shielding her as explosions shattered the outpost walls. He fired again, his rifle glowing hot, striking the machine's leg. Sparks flew, the massive beast stumbling but not falling. Its shadow filled the cavern, a monster of iron and death. Lyra's light surged one last time, the crystals flashing like stars. The war machine froze, its weapons shutting down, its body trembling. A scream echoed through the cavern, not human, not alien, but mechanical pain. Then silence, heavy and final. The hunters were gone, retreating into the darkness beyond. But the cavern had paid the price, its walls cracked, its ceiling unstable. Marcus held Liara in his arms, her body cold, her breath faint, her eyes half closed, but still shining. "You chose honor," she whispered, softly, even when it meant death. Marcus's throat tightened, words stuck inside him. He looked at her, his voice rough. "I chose the only path worth walking." The cavern groaned above them, stones cracking, dust falling like rain. The last refuge was breaking apart. Marcus tightened his arms around the alien princess. If they were to survive, they would need more than strength. They would need hope and a miracle. The cavern shook like thunder rolling beneath the earth. Dust rained from above. Cracks split across the crystal walls, and the ground trembled beneath Marcus's boots. He held Liara tightly in his arms, her body weak and trembling from the power she had unleashed. The glow of the crystals was fading, their strength almost gone. The war machine outside had been stopped for now, but Marcus knew it would not last. He laid Liara gently against the wall, brushing dust from her silver hair. Her eyes fluttered open, dim light still shining in them. "You must leave me," she whispered again, her voice faint and broken. Marcus shook his head sharply, his face hard. "I told you before," he growled. "I do not abandon those who trust me." She tried to protest, but her voice failed, her tears saying what words could not. The cavern roared again as enemy soldiers pushed inside, their weapons glowing red. Marcus grabbed the old rifle he had found, its metal burning hot from overuse. He fired without pause, each shot echoing like thunder. The first soldier fell, sparks flying from its armor, but more poured in, endless as a flood. The cavern became a storm of fire and smoke. Marcus fought with everything he had, his body screaming in pain. He dodged beams, swung his broken blade when bullets ran out. Every strike was fueled by desperation, every move by sheer will. The hunters pressed forward, their numbers overwhelming, yet Marcus stood like stone, refusing to fall. Liara tried to rise, her hands pressed against the glowing crystal wall. Her voice whispered in her language. Weak but fierce, the crystals answered, pulsing faintly, sending small waves of energy across the cavern. They struck at the soldiers, slowing them, buying Marcus precious seconds. But the effort drained her body shaking, her breaths shallow. Marcus saw her fading, and his heart burned with fury. The war machine roared back to life at the cavern's mouth, its eyes glowing red once again. It stepped forward, its massive legs shaking the ground, weapons charged, ready to turn the cavern into ash. Marcus raised his rifle, though it was nearly broken, one man against a beast of iron. Yet he did not flinch. The machine fired, beams slicing the air. Marcus dove to the ground, rolling behind a crystal pillar. The blast shattered stone, spraying shards across his skin. Pain cut deep, but he gritted his teeth, forcing himself up. He fired again, the beam striking the machine's armor, sparks flying. The beast staggered, but still advanced, unstoppable. Lyra's voice rose louder, her silver eyes glowing bright once more. The crystals around her pulsed, veins of light spreading across the walls. Energy filled the cavern, shaking the ground like a living heart. Marcus looked back at her, fear and awe colliding in his chest. She was giving everything she had, burning herself to protect them both. "No!" Marcus shouted, running to her side. He gripped her shoulders, his voice raw. "You'll die if you keep this up." Her lips trembled, her voice soft. "If I stop, you will die, and then all hope is lost." Tears slid down her pale cheeks, but her eyes were steady. She had accepted her fate, even if he had not. The cavern exploded with light, crystals firing beams at the war machine. The beast staggered, its weapons failing, sparks flying across its frame. Soldiers fell as waves of energy slammed into them, their armor cracking, their weapons shattering. The cavern itself seemed alive, fighting back with the last of its strength. Marcus stood in the center of the storm, shielding Liara as much as he could. Every blast lit his face, every strike echoed like the cry of the earth. Finally, with a scream of twisting metal, the war machine collapsed. Its legs buckled, its weapons shattered, smoke pouring from its broken frame. The soldiers froze, their formation broken, their courage lost. They retreated into the shadows, dragging their wounded with them. The cavern grew quiet again, only the hum of dying crystals filling the silence. Marcus fell to his knees beside Liara, his chest heaving, his body torn with pain. She lay in his arms, pale and trembling, her strength nearly gone. Her eyes half closed, but her lips curved into a faint smile. "You fought against all odds," she whispered, her voice fading. "You chose honor, not survival. And now the sands themselves honor you." Marcus's throat tightened, his hands gripping hers. "Don't leave me now," he said, his voice raw. Not. After everything, her silver eyes flickered, dimming like the last light of dusk. I will stay. As long as I can, she breathed. Then her eyes closed, her body still against him. The cavern cracked again, dust falling in heavy clouds. The crystals dimmed, their glow fading to darkness. Marcus lifted her once more, holding her against his chest. He stumbled toward the far passage, every step heavy. The battle was over. But the war was not. Enemies still hunted them. The wasteland still waited. But Marcus had chosen his path, and no force would turn him from it now. Honor against all odds had carried him this far, and though his body was broken, his spirit burned brighter than ever. The wasteland had tested him, and he had not fallen. He walked into the darkness of the tunnel, carrying the princess, carrying his burden, carrying the hope that honor was enough to light the way forward. The tunnel stretched long and narrow, walls shaking with every distant rumble. Marcus staggered forward, his legs weak, his body bruised, but his grip on Liara never loosening. Her breath was shallow, her skin pale like moonlight fading behind storm clouds. He pressed her close, whispering softly, "Stay with me." Though he did not know if she heard, the wasteland above was waiting, and so were the enemies that had not yet given up. When they emerged into the open night, the desert looked endless and cruel. The stars shone cold above, scattered across the black sky. The ruins behind them cracked and groaned, collapsing into themselves with a final roar. The sanctuary had fallen, its crystals broken, its secrets buried once again. Marcus stood on the ridge, staring at the horizon, wondering how much further he could carry her. Liara stirred faintly, her silver eyes opening, dim but still alive. "You should rest," she whispered weakly. Marcus shook his head, his jaw tight. "There is no rest in the wasteland," he said. "Not while they are still hunting us." She closed her eyes again, her lips trembling. "Then you will die," Marcus whispered back, his voice low. "Maybe, but I will die with honor." Hours passed as he moved across the sand, each step heavy as stone. His throat burned with thirst. His body begged to fall, but his spirit pushed him forward. The memory of his comrades carried him, the words of honor echoing in his mind. The wasteland tested him, mocked him, yet he endured. For her, for the choice he had made. He would not stop. At dawn, a shadow appeared in the sky. Marcus froze, his heart pounding. A ship descended slowly, its sleek design glowing against the morning light. It was not a hunter drone, not a war machine, but something larger, something royal. The sandstorm winds pushed hard as it landed, its engines roaring like thunder. Soldiers stepped out, but these were different. Their armor shone with silver markings, their banners marked with the royal crest. Lyra's eyes opened, a faint light flickering within them. "My people," she whispered, her voice almost gone. Marcus's grip on her tightened, his mind racing. These were the ones who had abandoned her, left her to die. Now they came, but were they rescuers or vultures? A tall alien commander stepped forward, his face stern, his eyes sharp. He looked at Marcus, then at the weak princess in his arms. "You are human," the commander said coldly. "And yet you carry our heir," Marcus glared back, his voice harsh. "She would be dead if not for me, and maybe that's what you wanted." The soldiers stirred, their weapons shifting, but the commander raised his hand, silencing them. Liara raised her head weakly, her voice trembling but strong enough to carry. "This man chose honor when even my people did not," she said. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as she looked at the commander. "If you dare call yourselves loyal, then you will honor him, or I will never forgive you." Her words fell heavy in the desert. Air, sharper than any blade, the commander bowed his head slowly. For the first time, respect filled his eyes. He motioned to his soldiers, and they lowered their weapons. "You have our princess," he said to Marcus, his voice softer now. "And for that, you have our debt." Marcus shook his head, his voice tired but steady. "I don't want your wealth, your safety, or your rewards. I only wanted to do what was right, Lyra reached for his hand, her grip weak but full of meaning. "You gave me life when I had none," she whispered. "You gave me hope when I was left to die." Her tears sparkled in the morning light. "Whatever happens now, I will never forget." The soldiers lifted her gently into their arms. Placing her inside the ship, Marcus stood outside, watching as they prepared to leave. His body swayed with exhaustion, his strength almost gone. One soldier stepped forward, offering him water and rest, but Marcus only shook his head. His eyes fixed on the horizon, he whispered softly, "Survival without honor is no life." Then he turned, his footsteps heavy in the sand. He walked away from the ship, back into the wasteland, his body broken, but his spirit burning like fire. The ship rose into the sky, carrying Lyra back to her people. Her eyes searched the desert until the human was only a shadow on the horizon. Her heart ached, but her soul carried new strength. One man had shown her what true honor meant, and that lesson would echo through her world forever. Marcus disappeared into the wasteland, his story carried by the wind, not as a soldier, not as a survivor, but as a man who chose honor when all else was lost. The desert swallowed his footsteps, but not his legacy. Because sometimes the smallest act of honor can change the fate of worlds.